Today we are going to be looking at father figures here. And I know sometimes Father's Day comes and people don't have sometimes good figures there, but there are people around you who can be. You know, and if you didn't have it, then be one yourself. Determine within that God can take you and make your life an expression to somebody that literally will change them, will help them get to the next place. That has happened in my life. As I look at Crossroad here and I think about all the people that God put in my path, I picked out some of the main ones in my life to be in this service today. And thankfully, those that are involved said yes. And I want you to see this verse. Look at this verse in 1 Corinthians. Chapter 4, verse 15. For though you might have 10,000 instructors in Christ, yet you do not have many fathers. Now he was talking about somebody he had actually led to the Lord, but people he had led. But what I'm seeing in that verse is not everybody will give the time that it takes to be a father figure. They have to invest not only a moment, but they have to invest a long period of time. And they have to care about you enough to invest in you. They have to see something in you to encourage it out. They have to do fatherly things to build up, encourage, instruct, to be there, even correct if you need it. And there are people that can be that to you. And for you men that are in here, I pray that you become one, and I pray and hope you have those in your life. And God put people in my life like that. We're going to start right from the beginning with my own father, the one who knew me the longest. And he's going to come on up, Harold Betts. And the neat thing with my dad is that I and my brother got saved before he did. So we literally got to see him changed. There was a time and a day that he called me and my brother fanatics very loudly. You're being a bunch of fanatics, because we were wearing crosses. And that's what he did, because we were wearing crosses. And the neat thing was, I knew he must be awful close, because now he's yelling. And he did. He ended up coming to the Lord. And I saw a thing that he never talked to us about, but he went out and bought a cross, a chain and a cross. And to this day, you got it on now, don't you, Dad?
Yes. Last night I had an open shirt. I could show it to you. But I'm not going to dig down there and get it out.
But I was always amazed that which he attacked now becomes his emblem of his sold-out commitment. It's the greatest example of salvation I got to see was my father come to the Lord and live that life, and God making him a godly man. Will you welcome my father, Harold Betts?
Thank you very much. In these the two services that we've had previously here, it amazes me when at the end of the service he's going to ask for all men to stand up. The number of men that are here compared to the number of men that probably are in other churches. And indeed, we're blessed to have men here. Amen. Approximately 61 years, 3 months, and a few days in the past, my wife and I were faced with a new challenge. We had our first child. It had set another path that we had to travel to do this, how to go. Well, we kept on having children. We ended up having 5. Could have been 7 because we had a couple miscarriages there along the way. Rick happened to be the one that was the middle child on this. If you have any preference or way you think about that, but anyhow, that's where he was. And as my children began to grow, and I was there and having care for them, I wanted to make sure that I was connected with their lives some way, some shape, some form, especially my sons. Now, I'm not ruling out the girls, but just want to be sure that with my sons as I was with my father. My father was a baseball fanatic, so to speak, because he had played professional baseball for a period of time. And at that time, when I was in that young age, we had minor league clubs in a few cities around. Don't have it many more, but we had one in Rehoboth, in Milford, and in Dover. We used to attend the one in Milford occasionally, but also in Philadelphia they had two teams. It was the Phillies and the Athletics. And we used to go up there probably about twice a month on a Sunday, and usually they had a doubleheader scheduled on Sunday when we went up there. So I indeed spent quite a bit of time with my father as far as going to baseball games. The only thing, it was maybe a little bit bad on that because of going up to the ball games, but I didn't get those perfect attendance pins at church, you know. I went all the other times, but anyhow, I'm not concerned about that because I get to spend that time with my dad, and it was very important as far as that was concerned. So I learned about that fellowship. Another thing that I learned from my dad was enough is enough at times, how that can be. When I was between my 10th and 12th year, I developed a very bad habit. Every summer I broke my arm. The first time I fell out of a tree at my grandfather's house. The next time I was jumping over a hedge and I didn't jump high enough and tripped and fell down. The third time I was riding my bicycle down, it really was right in the middle of town. And for some reason there was a pile of dirt there and I hit that and went over the handlebars. So my father had advice for me after that. He said, you do this again, you're paying for it. So I decided right then and there I'm not going to break my arm anymore. So I didn't, but I broke my leg. But this was about 30 years later now when I did this. And it was with my family. We were on a camping trip up in Pennsylvania. And Rick and John, the two oldest boys, came back to the camper that we were in and said, Dad, they're getting ready to play a football game here, touch football. You want to come and play with us? So I said, sure, I'll go out with them. And well, it wasn't long after that before John had to go back to the camper and tell Jackie, my wife, Dad broke his leg. It seems that we were supposed to be playing touch football, but this one guy was a bulldozer. He wouldn't have touched football. So, indeed, that kind of messed me up as far as that was concerned right there. But in my working with my sons and so forth, we had Little League and so forth. So I became a manager of a Little League team and had participated with them and with other boys whose father was not there, was not around at times and so forth, so I kind of got maybe to be a father figure for them at that time. We also did other camping and so forth. One particular trip that we did, we decided we were going to go to Florida. We had 5 children at the time. The youngest one was about 1.5, something like that. And we also took with us Bruce Jones, Bruce is the one who usually plays bass with us. He's our nephew. So there was 8 of us. We got in this station wagon to go to Florida. Now, we had another couple went with us. Now, they didn't ride with us. Of course, they had their own vehicle. But we went down to Florida and had a very good trip. The 2 things that kind of stick out in my memory on that was how bad the water tasted in Georgia and how the camping Cherokee, I should say, camping ground that we stayed in Florida, was kind of a challenge, too. But we did indeed have a good time. We did some other camping, of course, around used to go down with the same couple who went to Florida. We had a place down on Herring Creek. We used to go down camping there once in a while. And in this same time, I thought we needed a boat. So I bought a boat, and we were doing some water skiing with it and playing around like that. But after a period of time, this kind of got dragging out, and then I sold the boat, got rid of it, because its phase was over as far as our life was concerned. At this time, my 2 oldest boys, John and Rick, John had just gotten his license, and they began going to a couple things that I wasn't quite sure about, meetings and so forth. I was a little bit concerned about it. One of them was Sam Painter. Some of you may know Sam Painter. The word was he had been fanatically changed, and I was not sure how fanatic it was. You know, I was concerned about the Jonestown problem that we had years ago. You know what happened there with all the people who went down there and so forth. And I don't mean now Sam would have done that, but it was little things to make you think about it, you know, and then try to decide, is this good or bad? Well, I was wrong on it, as sometimes we fathers are, because at the same time this was happening, my wife was going to a Bible study with Sam's wife, Pat. So I was kind of caught in the middle there as far as it's concerned. But I have to admit now that I was wrong, because this was a very vital turning point as far as our family was concerned. over the years. It developed to things that followed after the fact, because shortly after this, or period after this, we had a lay witness mission in our church, the Methodist church, and the couples came from around the area, come in and shared over the weekend. They were talking about God in a way that I wasn't really familiar with, but I knew it was real. I was concerned because it wasn't God anymore. It was a loving God. You know, someone's concerned about you, that you need that perfect or better relationship with it. So indeed, we had several of us had a change. Several of us that attend this church right now and that are here. Bill Sammons was one. Marty Taylor was one. Ronnie Mitchell was one. And, of course, I was there. Jackie was there and so forth. And we had, of course, they were employees for Clyde Butch & Son Hardware Store, which you've heard Rick talk about many times. Well, I thought, boy, really things going to happen here. We're really thankful that. We had a very good business at that time. Now, I'm not trying to say there was anything wrong with it, because supposedly our business had the biggest percentage gain every year of any store in the area. But the change wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. Because after a period of time, Bill announced that he was going to have to leave. The Lord was calling him out. John left a while after that, and then later on Rick decided. So the hardware store became a thing of the past as far as that's concerned. But I'm thankful for what happened beyond that, because of that, in the situation, not only the change in the Betts family, but other families in the area, Eagle's Nest was born. And then consequently, Crossroad was born. So indeed, and last Thursday, I was over here in the morning, and sitting out in the back here was about 5 trucks loaded with material that is now unloaded over here. And I had to say, thank you, Lord, that I can be here where things are really happening for you in this area, Father. So thank you. So now, you might say, where am I? Okay. I still have 5 children, 18 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren, and 10th one's on the way. So, and I'm also thankful for the fact that several people in this congregation have nicknamed me Pop. That really, I'm thankful for that, especially for the hugs that go along with it.
All right, you call him Pop, I'll call him Dad. All right. The next I want to come up is someone that was part of that group, my Uncle Ronnie, Ronnie Mitchell. Come on up, Uncle Ronnie. And he was... He too, I watched my dad come to the Lord. I watched Bill Sammons, who became Pastor Bill. I watched my uncle come to the Lord, and I got to see some incredible things because they all had something different that God was going to use that was going to affect my life. Here's what happened with my Uncle Ronnie. I to this day, I still say the same thing. His heart was changed in such a way that he had a heart of compassion. God had prepared him to have a compassionate heart. And so in that business, if somebody came in, they were hurt or wounded by something, they needed a prayer or whatever, I would come in and I'd see him praying with somebody. Or we'd be in one thing, come around the corner, and there would be people, just somebody weeping, and he's there. And they had a death, or they found out they had a disease or something, and I watched him minister with compassion to people in ways I've never seen anybody else except maybe my mother. She always had that love and compassion and cared about people, but as far as a man, I'd never known anybody in my life that had a greater heart for people than this man right here. And that put a stamp on my life and something I know that has affected this ministry overall. So I thank God that God reached my uncle. He's married to my Aunt Donna, and I see his son here today, Kevin. And Kevin was basically outside of my own brother, John. who did I love to do things with, sports with, and play on games? It was Kevin. And I just loved that time in my life when we were on teams together. And today he's still a great coach. He still coaches young men and boys, and it's still that kind of influence that I saw through him and the people that God put around me and Kevin. So will you welcome here my Uncle Ronnie Mitchell.
Oh, thank you. I am so glad to be here, and I wish you could see the sight that I see here. From here, I wish I could reach out and hug all of you. You're just a blessing to me, this church, and you just encourage me. And I am so thankful to be called Uncle Ronnie. I am so thankful for Rick and his beautiful wife, Gail. They've been a blessing to me. But I do want to acknowledge my son and his family. I'm so proud of them being here today. Thank you, Lord. They're all giving their heart to the Lord. I want to share some fatherly figures in my life. There's been many, but I want to share some that have been my closest ones. And my closest one, of course, was my dad. I was the oldest. There was 3 boys, and I was the oldest. Well, when you're the oldest, you get things first. You get spanked. You get to cut the grass first and hoe the garden. But my dad was an awesome God. He always made us feel secure. He was always joyful to us. We didn't have much money or anything, but we had a lot of love. He shared his love with us. Another one that is very close to me was, in fact, he had a store, Collins Clothing Store in Milton, and it was a men's clothing store. And I had just gotten a car, my first car, and my license. I was in the 10th grade. And I had done little jobs all since I was probably 10 or 11, all through on the farms and little jobs. But this was a job I needed to make money to put gas in my little car. So this man took me in the store. He had 2 daughters. And he took me as, I guess, a son that he didn't have because, and he made me feel like a son. He just loved me. He directed me in the store. He showed me how people were so important. He showed me how the person that comes in the store is the most important person in the store because they pay my salary. And I thank God for this instruction that he gave me. But most of all, he had these 2 daughters. One of them, is Mary Ann Wyatt, and Pastor Wyatt's wife. I'm so thankful that I hear Pastor Ron is getting much better. And then my life was drastically changed. I got married in June of '61. I'm trying to hold it together now. You have heard of you get married, you married up. Well, I married up. What an awesome wife I have. And as you get in life and you getting older, God has a more deeper love and awesome love that we have for one another. It gets deeper and stronger. And I just thank God for my wife. Oh, awesome. Not too long after we were married, my father-in-law then, Harold Betts, my brother-in-law, they asked me did I want to come into the business? And I thought, sure, it would be great. It felt so good to be invited in, and but I tried to figure out why so soon, and I come to the conclusion after marrying a daughter and marrying a sister, they wanted to keep an eye on me. I didn't blame them for that either. Two awesome fatherly parents that I had. And what I saw in this was my father-in-law having the love for his son and the son having the love for the father. And I just, in awesomeness, saw that in them. And I just thank Harold today for being my brother-in-law. Just awesome. I want to, I think I'd like to have the pictures up on the screen for me, please. This is our marriage. When we got married, of course, you see Jackie Betts on the left and Harold on the right. But there's three little people there in the center. Luann, John, and the little guy. Who is that? Pastor Ray. Yeah, but he grew into awesome. Could I have the other picture, please? Now, the pastor just said, you may kiss the bride. And that little guy down there, he was our ring bearer. What's he doing? He's just looking out in the crowd. I could try to figure out what he was saying, thinking in that little brain. I think it was yuck. And I think he was thinking, I wonder how many people out here are saved. I got one more person, fatherly person that I've loved from the beginning. I knew in school. Is Pastor Bill. He's my spiritual daddy. And Mary Jane, my spiritual mother. There's not enough that I can say. He's still, well, I know God anointed Pastor Bill, but I think it sort of swung him to say, I've got to be a pastor to look after me. Because he has done that, and I'm so thankful for them. Anytime you want to get my attention, call me Pop-Pop or Uncle Ronnie. I love you.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next thing. You can see his heart of compassion. You can see it. When I gave my heart to the Lord, this incredible thing happened. A quartet came to the church, and I found out you could actually sing the gospel and be a part of that. So we formed a group called the Salvation Gospel Singers and went around singing. And at that time, we ran into this other group called the Epworth Quartet. And not knowing that years later, the Lord would put me in that quartet. I was actually teaching a Bible study that Bill Samus had been teaching in Harrington, and I had taken it over. And one day the Lord said, as we were going and I was praying for the Bible study, the Lord just interrupted my prayer, said, close down the Bible study. And when you got God on the line, you might as well ask what the next thing is. I said, okay, what am I going to be doing? He said, you're going to be with the Epworth Quartet. That was at the end of November. And so middle of December, I got a phone call from Bill Sammons Jr. saying, hey, Barry's going to take some time off to build a house. Would you like to sing tenor for the Epworth Quartet? And I go, okay. Isn't it kind of neat to just walk into whatever God's got for you? And I spent 4 years there, and 4 years that I think did so many things in this ministry. It's hard to even put together all the things God showed me and taught me there. And one of the big reasons was because of Dale Dukes. Dale, come on up. And here's what I saw in Dale that God was putting in my heart. He showed me a man who would work hard, not just for himself. He would work hard for a whole group of people. Dale worked before we got to his house to be able to go to a place. He then worked hard to get us to the place. He took care of the books, took care of the money. He was literally a father to the group. We would get there. He would make sure we were set up. When it was over, he would make sure everything got torn down. And when we got back to the house and everybody started leaving, he was the last one to work on it. He did that for over 40 years with the Epworth Quartet. We were talking about it last night. About 7 people went through there that became pastors. I believe it was on purpose that God knew they need a certain type of training. They need to see group organization. They need to see a leader. And that's what this man did for me. I saw something that I believe I still have here today that still functions. You find out it's not about you. It's about everybody together. And I am so overjoyed that he said yes, that he would come. And you said, I didn't even know that was happening. Well, you were being who God made you to be. But it literally, God had a purpose that night when he said, you're going to the Epworth Quartet. And I believe one of the biggest reasons is because I had to see him working with a group because God was going to use that for my future. Proud to call you a friend and a father figure. Will you welcome Dale Dukes?
Thank you. I don't take any credit for that. I give it all to him. My dad was my father figure. I was born in 1940, and I understand before I was born, of course, that he was pretty rough. He was a boxer. He had some other bad habits. But when I was born, I've never known my dad except being a Christian. He was a farmer. He did construction work. And then in the off season, he was a pastor. He pastored for over 50 years. He pastored a number of churches. He was called to Oak Orchard to hold a Bible study down there, and they were meeting in the fire hall. And they'd go in on Sunday morning, and they had to kick the cans and things out of the way and clean up so they could hold a church in the fire hall on Sunday morning. And he said, that's just not a good place to hold a church service. So they went ahead, and he built the Oak Orchard Community Church there, and he pastored there for 34 years before he became ill and passed away years later. But Dad always went to church. I mean, that's all I knew. I wasn't asked if I wanted to go to church. I just knew on Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night and every other time the church was open, if Dad was going to church, I was going to church. And Mother, too, But when Rick called me the other day and told me what he wanted to do today in the service, I was sort of taken back. I said, Rick, I never knew that I meant that much to you, that you looked at me as a mentor or a role model or anything, and I began to wonder what really is a mentor or role model. And I guess it happens and you don't even know that you are. But I know that living a Christ-like life, people watch you for how you act and what you do in your business, your transactions, and all those things. So I'm glad that Rick saw that in me. But I was wondering the other night, I wonder how many other people maybe look at me and don't see what Rick saw. And that's what really bothered me. So I want to ask you the same thing. Who's reading your life? What do they see? Are you the role model or a mentor to those that are broken and hurting that Jesus would want you to be? When Rick came in the group, as he told you, I knew Rick in the prior group that he was with, and he was in the middle teens, and we sang a lot in this area, and we became acquainted with a lot of the young groups that were starting up in the Milford, Milton area and so forth. And they looked up to us because we were some years older. And but Rick always stood out in the Salvation Gospel Singers. There's something special about the guy. Little did I know that fast forward maybe 15, 20 years, we would be singing together in the quartet. But when he came to the quartet, he brought a new dimension to our group with his talent, with the way he worshiped. And he took our group to a new dimension. I really enjoyed those 4 years that we traveled together. We had a GMC coach. We traveled, had 8 bunks in it in the bathroom, and we traveled all over the Eastern Shore and a number of states. Did you go to Michigan with us? You never went to Michigan. Okay. Nashville, okay. Well, we traveled a lot, and we had a great time together. I could tell you a lot of stories about that, but I won't.
Watch stuff, and I would just literally be thinking while it was happening here, and I think about all the people that God put in my path. I picked out in my life.